Welcome to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast, the show where we discuss what it takes to create a sustainable long-term online business in today's fast-moving environment. We talk with industry experts and freelancers alike to find out what it takes to build and manage a location-independent business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today's guest is Daniel Hall. Daniel is a freelancer, an author, and has been very successful at using Upwork to help grow his business. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hi Adam, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for joining me. So I guess I'm really excited to get talking to you because you have a lot of experience in, freelancing and running a business. So why don't we just cut straight to it and, tell me a little bit about yourself and your business?
Basically, I've been a freelancer since about eight years now. Essentially, I sort of broke my first $1 million at the end of last year. I freelancing Google Ads advertising. I've done a lot of stuff on Upwork, a lot of stuff outside of Upwork. So Upwork is only about 300,000 of my, but that's still quite a lot of money. So yeah, I sort of have people approach me all the time, and I'm top rated on Upwork.
Yeah, and that's a stellar. I'll make sure to link to your profile. Dan H is the name if anybody listening just wants to search, but they'll be in the show notes over at the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. And I think you can click the links now out of Spotify and everything. So I mean, it's easy to link people up. So I guess, can we wind it back to why did you start working online? What was it about working online that appealed to you? And why specifically then did you go into PPC?
So my history is quite different than most people. So I basically left university, ended up working for West Ham United Football Club. Was there for a few months. It's the club I support. And sort of when I was sort of emotionally attached, I sort of got too invested in it. So I decided it was best to leave there. Sort of had Google approached me. I put my sort of CV online and they asked me to go to Dublin and have an interview. I basically said to them, look, I don't want to be here more than a year. I'd like to transfer back to London after doing my 1 year, because in the sort of forms and sort of the interview specs, they said after a year you can transfer if you like. And the guy sort of having an interview with me said, oh, well, do I really want to be training someone up and after a year they leave? And I was like, fair enough. I'm probably not the best fit for you then. And we sort of agreed that there's no point sort of going on with the interview. Which I know sounds quite weird, but at the time I was quite settled in London, had sort of a long-term girlfriend, pets and stuff. But for that interview, I sort of did the exams for Google Ads, or Google AdWords as it was at the time. So I had sort of a bit of a background sort of knowledge of it just by doing sort of the exams. So I sort of studied for the exams just for this interview. So after that, I started applying for sort of Google Ads management jobs and got one in Essex. Was there for about a year and then decided that it wasn't for me, not so much Google Ads, but just working for someone else. I was on maybe about 20,000 a year and I'd just done a master's, which had cost me sort of the same amount of money. I'd sort of just given away 4 years of my life at university, been in lots of education, and thought, I'm the only person managing this stuff for this client. He's earning sort of 100,000, 120,000 out of what I'm doing a year. And I'm earning 20,000. If he can do it, why can't I do it for myself? But it wasn't so much that. It was I wanted something bigger. I didn't want to just be working for someone. So I actually didn't quit to become a freelancer. I quit to start a startup. So me and a guy there who was a web designer, we'd come up with some ideas and we've designed a landing page. And I actually met with someone called Mark Pearson. He started My Voucher Codes website and he's sort of very successful. He's worth about £60 million, I think. And he was a really nice guy. And we talked about my project and he was basically just saying, well, get it a bit further along the line and then we'll sort of talk again. So I hired a web designer from Upwork. He promised me everything would be completed in 30 days. He gave me a whole sort of a plan on this day is going to be this and this day is going to be this and this will be this and this will be this. And about 3 months down the line, he wasn't even sort of 25% finished. So I'm sort of sitting at home, sort of twiddling my thumbs, thinking I've got no money left. What am I going to do? So I thought the only thing I can do is sort of get some PPC working, some Google AdWords working. So I started emailing sort of people on Google. So I'll type in random stuff on Google, like I don't know, trainers and horses for sale, and
Just throwing a shotgun out there and seeing where it lands, you know?
yeah, just type in anything that fell into my sort of head. I would type in, and if I see a bad advert, I would go on their website, find their email address or their contact form, and tell them basically, look, your advert's not that great. I can do them a lot better, and sort of design the advert what it would look like. I got a few emails back, as you can imagine, that weren't complimentary.
Your typical cold emails are like, screw you.
Yeah. So obviously, if you're criticising someone, especially if you're criticising someone and they actually have an agency or they have sort of a manager at their company at the moment, I got a few back saying, "Oh well, X, Y, and Z," and yeah, it wasn't very nice. But I got sort of one hooked, which actually sold horses, which is why I sort of brought that up. And she was my first client. Basically, I think I only earned £600 from her, but I built her campaigns, helped her with some improvements on her website. And yeah, we only had her, pardon me, for about 3 or 4 months. But she was the start, and that £600 sort of helped a lot. Because when you've had no money, that sort of really helps. I wasn't getting too many hits. I was getting maybe 1 or 2 a month by sort of cold emailing people, and I thought there must be a better way to do this. So I thought it's better to use the freelance websites because people are there actively looking for someone, and you're actively looking for work. So approach people that may or may not be looking for something when you know there's a platform where people are looking for people like you. So I signed up to PeoplePerHour, which I've used before, and I signed up to Elance, which is Upwork now. Upwork basically Elance became Upwork a few years ago. PeoplePerHour, I picked up my first job. It was a bit of consulting. I think it was like £40 an hour just for phone calls here and there. And to be honest, the quality of client on PeoplePerHour was quite high. The problem I found was there wasn't many of them. So you might have had 30 or 40 jobs a day on Elance and only 2 or 3 per day on PeoplePerHour. So to build a business on PeoplePerHour at that time, I don't use it now, so it might be different. But at that time, you couldn't really build it because if there's 20 people going for 3 jobs a day, you'll be lucky to pick up 1 job a week. But on Elance, there was maybe, 30 or 40 people applying for the same jobs when there was 30 or 40 jobs a day. So you were sort of guaranteed to get 1 or 2 jobs a day on Elance rather than getting maybe 1 a week on PeoplePerHour. So
And what did you do to stand out at that point? You know, like when you were beginning, you didn't have much of a profile. I know this is where a lot of people struggle at the beginning, you know, when you don't have, like, you know, as an employer who hires off Upwork, you know, one of the first things I do is go to the filters. Must have 100 hours, must have this. Like, I
yeah.
literally don't, like, respectfully to the people listening, like if I'm hiring, I typically put those filters in place, and a lot of people will. So what did you do to stand out at the beginning with regards to pitching these people?
So basically, the main thing I did was I would link to my blog and I would say, look, I'm brand new here, but you can see I've been writing a blog for, 2 years I've been writing it. It's not up anymore, but at the time it had articles about sort of usability of websites. It had all ideas about sort of Google AdWords, and I don't know if you're that familiar with Google AdWords or Google Ads as it is now, but there's a big thing called SCAG, which is sort of you put keywords in your own ad groups. That's something I've been doing for sort of 9 years now, and something I used to talk about 9 years ago. And it's something that you see on sort of blog posts now. People say, "Oh, you must be doing SCAG and X, Y, and Z," and it's like, well, I was sort of promoting that 9 years ago. Yeah, so I'd sort of tell people to read my blog, and I got a hell of a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, I've read your blog. Yeah, it's really good. I'd like to give you a go." But it wasn't just that. I would sort of avoid the people who wanted a new account built. I would sort of approach people who had an account, and I would say, okay, I'm prepared to look at your account for free, tell you where you're going wrong, audit it, and if you'd like to use me, use me. If not, you've got some free advice here. So I wouldn't actually do the job for free, which I don't advocate doing anything for free if there's an actual job there, but actually doing an audit to win the job.
Yeah, so kind of like a prospect, and I know a lot of SEOs will do this, where after you've got that person engaged and they're like, oh, okay, maybe let's talk about this more. Maybe you'll make a little 5-minute video audit of, like, you know, you load up Ahrefs or whatever, and you'll kind of be like, here's your rankings, here's your keywords, here's your competitors, here's a couple of ideas I have. If you want me to move forward, I will, because it's a small investment of your time in terms of you already have the knowledge. You just kind of need to present it to them in a way that, oh, this person looks like, you know, they know what they're talking about. Maybe I will hire them.
Yeah, exactly. So I was quite lucky that most of the people going on to sort of Freelancer at the time, or Upwork now, their accounts were really bad. So I could pick out maybe 10 or 20 things they were doing bad, and things that they could sort of change within 5 minutes. One setting they could change that could sort of, I don't know, reduce their cost per lead by £1 or whatever. Yeah, I was able to sort of do a lot of that, and there wasn't one. Oh, I've never ever done an audit where I haven't actually picked up the work. So that worked for me when I first started. And something I sort of tell people is the first 10 sort of jobs you get on Upwork, I think, is very hard to win. So even if you've got 2 or 3 feedbacks, people look at that and think, well, we've only got 3 feedback. I can't really trust that. And you might only have sort of 8 feedbacks. I think sort of 10 is the sort of tipping point where people start to think, okay, well, if he's done 10 jobs and he's got 100% feedback out of 10 jobs, he obviously knows what he's doing. So for those first 10, I sort of did the audit. So I was sort of linking to my blog, etc., and sort of really going for the job. So not much lower, but I would sort of bid a bit lower than I do now, and just really put everything in to win the work. Once I sort of had them 10 feedbacks, I found it a lot easier because people actually start approaching you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they'll start, like, you'll start doing the invites, isn't it? As the employer, you start going, oh, this person, like you're saying, based on the rating and feedback, you're like, yep, you look like the sort of person I'd like to hire.
Yeah, exactly. So as I say, at the time, you can't do it now, but you could see exactly who you were bidding against. This used to be quite cool. So there used to be a guy who was ex-Google who would apply on every job. There was an agency from London, like 2 guys, and another agency from Brighton that were 2 guys that used to bid on every job. And sort of they were sort of the main ones that used to appear. But you'd sort of see maybe 20 people applying on sort of each job, and you sort of got to understand what they were doing, what their business was. And I say it's obviously a lot more competitive now than it was back sort of 7-8 years ago. But at the time, you'd say, okay, well, if this guy's gone for that job and he's won that, then the next day he won't be applying for this job. So even if you couldn't win a job going completely against them, you know that, well, he's picked up a bit of work here, he won't have time to do this one as well. So
coming in the next day going full tilt.
yeah, basically. I know that sounds stupid, but that was what I would do. I'd say, okay, well, the ex-Google guy who everyone was sort of wanted just because he had the name Google in his sort of profile. If he was off the site for 2 or 3 days, I would make sure I sort of blasted it in them 2 or 3 days, and I'd pick up lots of work, and then I wouldn't need to pick up work for a week or 2, and then hopefully by the time I'm looking for work again, he's not looking for work. So it was quite good in that respect. I say you can't do that now.
Could have put in your profile, I got offered a job at Google, but I turned it down. See how that would have went.
So yeah, basically now I don't really apply for that much. I get most offered to me, and something that a lot of people are surprised about is I turn most work down. So I maybe get offered 4 or 5 jobs a day, and maybe pick up 1 a week, just because I don't like the quality of the client. So I'll give an example. This was actually back in the Elance days. A guy sort of approached me and said, will you sort of manage my Google ads for me? I looked at his website and he was selling like musical equipment and renting musical equipment. Looked at his site and it was absolutely dreadful. And I said, look, I can't do this for you. Your website's dreadful. You'll just waste money if you go ahead. Improve your website. It might cost you $500, $1,000, whatever. Improve your website. Come back to me, and then we can talk again. He gets upset. He says, "Oh, everyone I've spoken to said my website's fine. Why can everyone else, other PPC freelancer, do it by yourself?" And I was like, "Well, use someone else." I said, "I'm giving you advice. If you don't want to take it, don't take it." So a few months down the line, he emails me again on Upwork. "Oh, I've now spent $17,000. Haven't made 1 sale. I've used several freelancers. Can you do my pay-per-click for me?" And I said, "Well, you haven't changed your website. I'll tell you the exact same thing that I told you then. This will not work. So come back to me if you don't want to make changes. And again, the guy, I don't know, he just spent $17,000, hasn't made a sale, still did not believe me, went away, used a different freelancer, come back a few months later, asked me again. And I was like, you're not getting this. I've told you twice now. So, yeah, you get a lot of people like that that don't want to take advice. And if I can look at a website straight away and know if that'll work or not. So I can bring the best quality traffic in the world to a website. But if a person can't check out correctly, if the pictures are bad, if the content's bad, I won't get a sale. So it makes me look bad. So I only take on jobs that I know will work, which, especially on Upwork, your feedback is everything. You get one bad feedback and suddenly you're not the guy anymore. So I sort of avoid jobs I know will not work. This is going to sound really, really stupid, but I avoid most people that ask for a phone call, which I bet you haven't heard before. But
no, typically it's get them on the phone so you can close. So
most people want the phone calls. So I try to avoid them because what I've found is someone that wants a phone call will end up wanting phone calls regularly. So they are the people that will take a lot of your time. If I get someone who, okay, like your profile, work for me, I'll get maybe one message a month, 2 messages a month, and that takes me maybe 5-10 minutes to deal with. I get a guy out who wants a phone call.
This is because PPC is more like, leave me alone, let me do my thing. I understand what we're trying to do here. It's not about you needing to explain yourself and why you're doing everything to that client. Is that what it will be?
Yes, exactly. So whereas I've actually got a guy at the moment who only sort of agreed to take his call because he's spending quite a bit of money. But ever since I've sort of had him, I'm getting 15 emails a day. I'm getting, I need a weekly call, X, Y, and Z. And I found a big correlation between the people that want calls being the ones that need a holding hand and want to sort of have lots of input and want to sort of do things their way. And yeah, it's just obviously, as you know, as a freelancer, sort of time is money. So I sort of avoid people that I think are going to take a lot of my time. I actually had one guy I burst out a little too recently. One sort of messaged me and said, "Oh, I'd love you to do my sort of manage my account. I'm very hands on. I know exactly what I want." So I sort of straight away was like, "No,
thanks."
thank you." Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'll do it yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And I do tell a few people that because you do get people who suddenly read a blog and why are we not doing this and why are we not doing that? So you have to explain yourself. But so I had that, and I had another guy who messaged me last week, and he was like, "Oh, I'm putting the A team together. I don't have any clients yet, but I think we're going to be sort of the biggest company in the UK. Blah 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 blah." And then straight away you think, "We haven't got a client. Like you're sort of making big promises." And I sort of don't deal with people that make sort of big promises like that. Sort of they never transpire. So I say going on Upwork, sort of gone on a bit of a tangent there, but. Yeah, I sort of going on Upwork, I sort of got the first 10 feedbacks, and now most people approach me. The only time I will approach anyone else is if I see a very, very good job there. I will look every single day to see if there are sort of jobs available.
So even at this level of experience and this long working on there, you are still looking at opportunities that come up?
I do, yeah, only since December. So there was a 3-year period where I completely left Upwork, which I'll talk about in a minute. But every single day I look if there's any opportunities. So I manage Toys R Us at the moment. It's sort of relaunched in Australia and New Zealand where I manage it. I believe it's relaunched in America as well, but I just manage it in Australia and New Zealand. The guy I actually met, he started a hobby shop in Australia. A few years later, he's now bought out the Toys R Us brand, and he was from Upwork. So you do get some good quality clients on there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the global standard, really, isn't it, for hiring freelancers? It's where a lot of people go first, even big companies, you know.
It is, yeah. And I've actually seen Upwork themselves try to hire people on there. But I was going to apply for the job, but surprisingly, they were paying a stupidly low rate. So
well, they take 20% of your cut too. So I mean, making their money now.
I thought like the prestige would be quite good just to say in your profile, well, I actually do a PPC for Upwork, but they were paying something like $12 an hour, and I wasn't going to sort of accept that. So I didn't sort of take the opportunity on.
So did you niche down? I guess like this is kind of my next thought here on all of this is like you mentioned Toys R Us, which is an e-commerce brand. Like, did you during your period of using Google Ads, did you niche down, or do you feel that you can if you can do Google Ads, you can do Google Ads. It doesn't matter if it's e-commerce, if it's selling a course, if it's doing local business services.
I did niche down, which is ironic. I niched away from e-commerce. So I sort of took on a few e-commerce companies. One ended up being a bad payer and sort of had to take him to court and stuff. And then it's just too much work, e-commerce, for sort of the money you earn. It's just too much work. So I always stay away from.
A lot of ads involved.
Yeah, so there is software out there like there's a piece of software called Blue Winston which sort of can automate a lot of that. But I sort of stay away from e-commerce, and I get a lot of angry sort of people messaging me as well. I want you to do my e-commerce, and I say sorry, unless it's sort of over 5,000 like pounds in spend. So I charge 10%, so I would make £500 a month off of that.
Which is still not a lot of money for the amount of work that goes into managing 5,000 worth of ads. It'd be multiple ad sets when it comes to e-commerce versus like I'm a plumber in London and I want business. Like, you know what I mean? Like the amount of ad sets that it will be.
Yes, exactly. So I sort of do a lot of white labeling for clients, and that's the reason why I sort of left Upwork like previously, just because I had so much sort of agency stuff come in. So, but one of my clients charges 100% management fee. So for me to charge 10%, and I've sort of got the feedback and that, and he charges sort of 100. That's sort of you can sort of see sort of how low my sort of prices are. But I've got other agencies that sort of the standard industry is about 30%. I sort of always see myself as being 10% just because I'm a freelancer. So people tend to go to freelancers on the basis that they're lower priced.
Yeah, lower than the agency because you have less overheads, you don't have an office
so
and everything else.
Exactly. So
and it also gives you an opportunity, like something you hit on there that I think is really important, and a lot of freelancers miss this opportunity, is to partner with agencies and white label your service. In episode 1 I spoke with Carlo, and they do a lot of work like this for agencies in terms of content creation and stuff like this, where I'm an e-commerce store owner. I pay the agency outsources the writing to a freelancer, and the agency just puts their markup on it and includes it in the budget. So, you said you kind of stepped away from Upwork because you were getting so much work referred to you by these agencies. So do you think that's a good way for freelancers, be it PPC, be it writing, be it SEO, to grow their portfolio of clients?
If you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said yes, definitely. There's sort of certain downsides to working with agencies. So the upsides are you get a constant stream of work. As I say, I came off of Upwork because I just had too much work I could cope with. So getting any more from Upwork, sort of, I just physically wouldn't have been able to do it. With agencies, you also find another benefit is that sort of if I'm taking on a new client and X, Y, and Z, they ask lots of different questions. The agency owner will sort of deal with the client directly, opposed to me, and I'll sort of reply to him. And after he's heard the same answer 2 or 3 times, whenever a client asks that, he'll be able to answer it directly. So you actually end up in a relationship where the agency owner is sort of being a sort of fielding the email. So they'll say, well, I don't have to ask Dan that question because he's already answered it 10 times. It's the same answer all the time. So I'll just give the client that answer. So it gets to a point where they understand what you do. They start to understand it, and you get a lot less emails, and it just becomes an easy relationship to have. With a new client, I always produce sort of a document that has a list of questions, a list of answers. It tells exactly what I've done, why I've done it, and what's going to happen going forward, to try to reduce as many sort of questions as I can. But with that agency relationship, alongside doing that, the regular questions that will come up that are not on that sheet, the agency owners have actually asked that, sort of answered that for the client. So that's very good, and sort of you make friends with these agency owners, and yeah, it just becomes.
And they also do a lot of like what I would call the grunt work in terms of like they're doing the proposals, they're doing the pitches, they're doing, what I mean? They're managing a lot of it. They only come to you when like the person is sold, they've agreed to pay, you just got to deliver on the work. And that's where there's a power in becoming affiliated with some of these agencies where they can send you the work essentially and remove, like, a lot of times people struggle with the proposals, with the pitching, with, that side of the business. And this is when joining or becoming a part of an agency in terms of they think of you when they want to outsource some of the work. That, it's a powerful position to be in and a good position to be in as a freelancer sometimes.
It is definitely. As you say, save you a lot of time. You don't have to do any selling whatsoever. I would sit there and I'd get 5 or 6 sort of jobs come through a week and just, can you do this? Here's the sort of proposal. Here is what you need to do. When can you get it done? So say, okay, well, I can get it done by next Thursday, and that just become my life. There was no having to pitch. There was no having to meet clients. There was no anything like that. A lot of the sort of emails were being covered, that sort of the client themselves. So yeah, for me, it's become quite easy.
So let's talk a little bit about what, you mentioned that you ended up getting too much. Like, all of a sudden agencies are referring, you have your Upwork. And I imagine if you keep rejecting everything on Upwork, eventually they go, well, we're going to stop recommending you. I don't know if the algorithm works like that. That's a massive assumption on my part. But like, if you're on there, you have a profile and you just you don't take work. Like, I imagine something must.
Now I probably get, at this moment in time, sort of it depends on a month, because sort of August is always a bad month. It's sort of everyone's on vacation, so you don't get much in August, and you don't get much in December because people are off for Christmas and stuff like that. But so it depends on the month. But a month like September, I'm getting maybe 2 or 3 people a day find me and sort of interview me sort of ask me to interview me. During my time off of Upwork, the first sort of 6 months, I was getting sort of the same. But last year, when I wasn't on there, I was getting maybe 2 or 3 a month. So you obviously still appear, but you obviously appear lower down the rankings. So that's why it became quite hard for me when I actually got back on the site. So you'd actually think, okay, well, I've got, I know at that time, 200,000 I'd made on my profile. I had, say, 150 different feedbacks and stuff. So you'd think it would have been quite easy to transition back into that, but it wasn't. I wasn't appearing up the top, and people wasn't finding me, and people were saying to me, well, you haven't done a job in 3 years, like, where have you been and stuff. So getting back on there was actually quite hard. And I actually began taking on clients that I would never normally take on. So like I said earlier, like the people that wanted the phone calls, the people that seemed like there'd be aggravation, I sort of had to sort of take them on again just to get a few recent feedbacks.
This has come up before as well with some other freelancers on here saying that, like, when you're talking about showing up higher in the rankings, that'll be based on completing jobs and accepting jobs as well. Like, that being a factor that contributes to this. So like you're saying, taking a 3-year break, even with amazing feedback, somebody who's maybe made 10 grand but has taken, a lot of smaller jobs recently, they would feel that maybe that's the better person to recommend because they're being active. So coming back in, you had to do this. You had to just take some jobs really and get your, whether you like the niche, the client, the industry, you just had to get your, get some momentum going again on the platform. And did it take you long, do you think?
So I got back on there in December. I won 2 or 3 jobs pretty soon, but I was applying for a lot of jobs at that time. And then by sort of February, I was able to sort of pick and choose again. Yeah, I say the initial, I know it sounds stupid because I actually picked up some work, but if you're getting 3 jobs out of, I don't know, say 100 you've applied for, whereas you're used to picking up 20, 25 off of 100 you apply for, it's sort of it was quite a sort of drop. And I'll say the ones that I was winning was the ones that I'd normally avoid. So it was probably the ones that everyone else was saying no to.
Did you ever consider, like, building your own little team and training people up? Because, yeah, just curious, like when you were, you obviously have the capacity and the skill set to deliver on this sort of stuff, and you're getting more and more work. Did that thought ever cross your mind, or do you prefer to have control over the situation?
I'll get asked this a lot, and one of my friends who's not that great at business, and he's always saying to me, well, you should be doing an agency, and for me, there's 2 reasons why I don't. One, sort of obviously my business is built off of myself, so a lot of people come to me because they want me working on their stuff. They can see the feedback I have. They don't want me to be outsourcing to someone else, even though I can say, look, well, I'm overseeing it. I will still have input, but someone else is doing the work. They're like, well, no, we're hiring a freelancer because we want that person to do the work. So my reputation would sort of become a bit, not completely worthless, but slightly worthless because you're basing the reputation on someone running the company rather than the person doing the work. And the other reason was, again, it's going to sound quite funny, I don't actually enjoy Google Ads, so I don't actually enjoy what I do. So I enjoy the money, I don't enjoy the actual work. So for me, I say how I got into freelancing, what, as I explained earlier, was sort of I did it because I needed the money at the time, and because I was earning so much money, I continued to do it. But it's not actually the long term goal to continue sort of doing sort of Google Ads management. So I'm sort of branching out into sort of becoming an author and trying to write other books and stuff. So yeah, until I found something that makes me the same amount of money, I'll continue to do it. But it's not something I want to do long term. And again, that sounds stupid because I've done it for 8 years, but I spent 8 years trying to find something different. So,
well, I mean, you could always try and put your knowledge into a course and sell that too, you know.
Yeah, I actually did. I did a Udemy one a few years ago, and at that time I'd only just started out, and I think I'd made I think it was the first year that I'd sort of broke the 100,000 like for the year, and I'd sort of done it as like, oh, learn how I sort of made 100,000 for the year, and I think I got 2 sales, so yeah, not that great. So.
Well, fair enough. Like, it's hard. I guess there's a whole process to building and launching and selling courses. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, and anyone who says it is probably selling you a course. You know.
Yeah, of course. No,
but look, let's talk about the authorship. So you've written 2 books, and there's another one launching as well.
Yeah. So the ones I wrote before were I put my name to them, but essentially what I did was got lots of different people from Upwork and paid them, I don't know, $100 each to sort of have a list of answers and questions. So it would be an SEO team that say, okay, well, what would be your top recommendation to do for SEO? And it'd be a web design. What would your best user experience tip be, and stuff like that. And it was just different questions like on a business perspective. And then I did the same on a sort of freelancing perspective, where I got lots of people to sort of answer questions about their freelance journey. So a bit similar to sort of this podcast, but in book form. And that was about, 5-6 years ago now. And then at Christmas time last year, I just sort of decided that, look, I've been moaning about not enjoying what I do for a while. Let's try and sort of get into other stuff. There's obviously millions of freelancers out there. Everyone wants to earn good money. I've earned over $1 million as a freelancer. So why don't I tell people how I've made that $1 million as a freelancer? So I've basically gone through sort of step by step, explained why I've written a book. I've explained why you might want to read the book. I've explained how you get jobs, how you get a job on Upwork, how you get jobs outside of Upwork, how you keep clients happy, and even the mental side of it. So I'm not going to lie, I was quite struggling at the end of last year, and so I've brought in little changes to my life this year that I sort of mentioned in the book. So I would always read my emails the second I woke up, and I've got clients in Australia, which probably 80% of my clients are Australian. So I was waking up to 15, 20 emails a day, which I still do. And if you get that many emails and say 3 or 4 of them are bad emails, you wake up in a bad mood immediately. I would sort of lay in bed, read this, get out of bed, be angry, get on the laptop or the computer. And it wasn't just a great start to the day. So
no, absolutely not. It's important to put those filters in place to try and save yourself.
It is, yeah. So now I sort of I don't check my phone for the first half an hour. I sort of spend time with my son. I sort of have breakfast, and I sort of ease myself into the day and sort of wake myself up. I found it's just a lot easier to deal with things when you're awake. So
I found in the evenings as well, just something similar that I turn off all notifications for email, even Facebook Messenger, everything off my phone now, because I was finding similar to that. You might get a notification at 11 o'clock at night, and the next thing you're lying in bed thinking about it, and you're not affecting your quality of sleep, which affects your work the next day. So it's important, I think, to set some filters around what you will and won't do, especially as a freelancer, because it never ends. You might have been pitching, you might have been messaging somebody on Facebook, and now they want to talk with you. You never know. You never get away from it, really, which can affect you.
Yeah, exactly. And I was even going on holiday and sort of still working on holiday, which I still reply to emails now, but I was physically working. So someone would say to me, I need X, Y, and Z done. And I'd be in India, sort of out there to go and watch the cricket. And next thing I know, I'm having to sort of do an hour or 2 hours worth of work. Whereas now I will say, look, I'm on holiday. I'm not doing it. Whereas I'd always felt worried to say that before, but I think people do understand. I think it's more yourself thinking that they won't understand. So yeah, I actually give myself breaks now, which I highly recommend, which I know sounds stupid,
No,
but
look, I've
I
been there, done that. I completely.
yeah, and sort of not. I never used to have weekends and things like that, and now I actually enjoy my weekends. And on a Friday night, that's me finishing. On a Monday morning, that's me back. So you need to actually sort of de-stress, and you need to sort of refresh yourself, which I was never doing. And after a while, it would sort of get to breaking point. So there's a lot I've wrote in the book about sort of the mental issues and sort of the mental sort of improvements you can make as well, which I think a lot of people fall into them because obviously yourself, you've said you've fallen into that trap, and I've spoken to others who've also fell into that trap. So for me, I sort of make a big point in the last chapter that yes, earning money is great, but it's not the most important thing. Sort of being happy is more important than the money, which I know everyone that earns money says that, and it's oh yeah, you can say that because you've earned that money, but I think that a lot of people chase money and it's never enough. So you make 100,000 a year, you then need to earn 120, and once you made 120, you need to make 150, and you're never happy chasing that money. You just need to sort of find where you're happy and sort of just chase that happiness instead. And for me, I'm now sort of reducing my workload and sort of reducing how much I can earn, just because I'd rather earn 30 grand a year less or 40 grand a year less, just because I want to have holidays, I want to enjoy my weekends, and I want to be happy. Whereas before I was just putting everything into my business, and it's not happy. It's not sort of healthy for relationships either. So
No, I totally agree. But I guess as a freelancer and as you progress and get to, a mature stage of your career, which you will be in, having been a freelancer now for 8 years, you can reduce the hours you work and increase your rate. And like you're saying, pick and choose more who you work with, and over time, work, like you're saying, work less, but do be paid more for the work that you're doing, and get paid better, therefore improving your work life quality over time.
and something I'd sort of always tell people to do and tell freelancers to do, and it's how I built my business, was taking on the small clients. So I would rather have 200 small clients earning me £100 a month or £50 a month or £20 a month, because you've then got a sort of a stable stream of income, and if you lose one, it makes no effect to your business. So if I lose a client that's earning me £20 a month, that makes no difference to my life. If I lose a client earning me £5,000 a month, it makes a big difference. But I've always built my business that way, and now I'm sort of gone the opposite way, because I feel like I've got to a stage where I don't want to be working as much anymore. I'm now taking more risks, and I'm taking on the bigger clients. So I'm now doing the Toys R Us, whereas in the past I would have actually turned that down. And I've got sort of only last week I've got one of the Fortune 100 companies. So it's white labeling for a client in Australia, but that's quite a huge spend.
Brilliant. That's where you want to be.
I'm just going to sort of aiming for the big stuff now, and I'm trying to get rid of the little stuff. So yeah, so if I haven't got 100 people emailing me a day, well, instead I've got 5 people emailing me. I'm now going for the sort of higher risk of sort of losing stuff, but just making my general life better.
I mean, I get what you say. It's very relative in the SEO world, where people who work with, especially local SEO clients, when people start out, I know in America they're always like, oh, try and get somebody $1,000 a month or $500 a month, or even in Ireland it might be like €300 a month for like a small local business, and you'll build up a little portfolio of these. But after a period of time, one or two things happens. Either everything's running smoothly, and you'll always have a churn rate no matter what your business is. It'll always be a percentage of people who, just stop paying you for their services or something. So there's always going to be a bit of a process there. But yeah, as you get more confident, as you get more skilled, you tend to go for those bigger clients, because instead, you start to have this mindset of, well, what if one client paid me as much as having 10 small ones? That's a lot less headaches over time. But then, like you're saying, the risk in terms of if that client then pulls out, it's a much bigger risk to your bottom line. So it's about having the systems in place where you can, I guess, mitigate that, or at least plan for it should it happen.
Yeah, so going back to sort of negatives of working with agencies, As I say, I built my business on the security of always working with small clients, that if I lost one, it wouldn't make any difference to my life. But then last year, it sort of happened that all my agencies at the same time, something happened with them. So I had one guy who was bringing me, I know, only 3 or 4 accounts a month, but still a steady stream of sort of clients for years and years. And he decided he wanted to go into mortgage broking rather than being an agency owner anymore. So still had his clients that he had, but he brought no new clients in. So that was like a stop of income stream. Two clients both had children. They basically took a break from their businesses. So you're sort of reliant on what the agency owner does in their life. Had another client called Jerry, who I had for 7 years, who he's basically one of my first clients, and he had just one client to start with, and he built up to about, and I'd say 40 or 50 clients, and I was earning about 7,000 Australian dollars a month out of him. So I think it translated to about £4,000 at a time. But I was earning quite a bit from him. I went to Australia for the Ashes not last Christmas, the Christmas before. I met him out there and was speaking to him for quite a while, and we got on really well. And I say we'd effectively been friends, and he knew that I just bought a big new house that had quite a big mortgage on, and I had a baby being due in March, and he was going through some problems, and he was sort of trying to grow his business even more. And so we had these discussions, and he promised me that he's going to get X, Y, and Z clients, and he's now working with someone who owns most of the McDonald's franchises in Australia, and because of that, he knows all these different businessmen, and we was going to get super, super rich and all that sort of stuff. And then it gets to May, and without warning, he just took away my access to his accounts and said, I want you to reduce your rate by half. I want you to charge 5%. Otherwise, I'm going to use software. And it was, as I say, it just out of the blue. We was working together for 7 years. We had a perfect relationship, always got good results. He's promised me the world, and next thing I know, overnight, he just sort of took the access away. And as you can imagine, I'm not going to do sort of half the work for the same amount of work, half the money for the same amount of work. So I said no, but to sort of lose $4,000 overnight was quite a big kick in the teeth, especially when, as I say, I just got a new mortgage and a kid born and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's a horrible situation to be in. I nearly have a pain in my stomach hearing that.
It was annoying because I built my business on small clients that I don't have that risk, and by being with an agency that started from one small client, it sort of built over years and years and years that you don't realise you're getting caught in a trap. And I sort of lost that, and then I had another client who was an American guy, and he fell out with his business partner last year as well. So they split their company in half, and I got some of the clients and he got some of the clients. So yeah, I sort of lost half of my clients from his, because he fell out with a business partner. I've had another client who was earning me about £3,000 a month. He got arrested on a sexual charge last year, put in prison overnight, and that's his business gone. So I sort of like in 1 year I had all these agencies, things going wrong, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe it. And where I was earning, I think my best ever month was £21,000 it went down to about 9,000, which I know is still great, but I've got sort of when you earn a lot of money, you spend a lot of money. So I've got quite a lot of bills. So yeah, that was quite stressful, just having sort of, a huge mortgage, a new kid, and all this stuff to pay for.
And that's when you really wanted to push back into using the marketplaces, is it?
Yeah, so I went back to Upwork, and I sort of now stay away from agencies. As I say, like previously, I recommended them like anything, but I say you can't control what's happening in other people's lives. So a guy gets arrested, you've lost it. A guy decides that he wants to try a bit of software, you've lost it. A guy falls out with his business partner, you've lost it. I've had like the business coach I mentioned earlier who charges 100% management fee. I had one client who was absolutely terrible, who I'd never take on myself, and if I did take him on, I would have got rid of him immediately because he was just so much hard work. He was constant, every single day, email. And I sort of told the sort of business coach how bad he was, and you're fine, and it's you're fine because it's me dealing with this guy, not you. And then after a few months, I'm getting really, really good results for him. And then he has a falling out with the business coach, and we lose him as a client. So I've got to a stage where I've actually made this guy happy after months and months and months of him being a bit of an idiot, and then I lose the client because my agent, like the sort of the affiliate I'm dealing with, has fallen out with the client. So you're not in control of your clients if it's through an agency, and it's not just that, it's the stress you have working with an agency. So as I say, they will take on clients who you don't want to work with, but you can't say no, because you say no to that, then they'll be like, okay, well, we don't want to work with you anymore because we're going to bring on clients like this. So you have to work with clients you wouldn't normally want to take on. Say you get a client who's unhappy about something or they want to leave, suddenly that puts the other clients you have with that agency in jeopardy, because suddenly they're thinking, okay, well, if this client's unhappy, like, why should I keep working with you? So it's sort of like it's a lot more stress involved than sort of working with clients directly. So if you have a client earning you £50 a month and you lose him, and oh well, we've lost 50 quid. But if you work with an agency and you lose a £50 a month, but that £50 a month's caused so much aggravation at the agency that suddenly your £2,000 a month is now sort of at risk. It's just it's stress you don't really need, to be honest. And as I say,
so taken away from this, because I guess you've done both really well. You know, if a freelancer is listening to this and you know they're up there, they're freelancing, they're wanting to do better, I guess what do you think is the best advice? Is it to maybe do a bit of both, to grow your business, or is it to like try and stick specifically with the end customer versus working with agencies? What do you think is ideal?
I think it depends on your motivation. I think if your motivation is money, I'd go with agencies, because if you have 10 agencies, you have 10 salesmen, you have 10 people going out there getting you clients every day of the week. Your business will grow like so quickly. But if you want to be happy, I'd say go through
less stress.
If you want a less stressful life, just go direct and sort of use Upwork, find your own clients. So I'd say it's a trade-off. Obviously, the world we live in, everyone wants money, so the majority of people will go for the agency route just because that's where you're going to earn your most money.
And a key caveat here as well is that you delivered the work, you weren't farming out the work, where some other people, like specific, content just comes to mind, or even link building, where like people often work with agencies, but like you don't deal. If I'm selling content to an agency in the UK, it's not me writing the content. I have somebody else, and I just have a markup on them, and then the agency has a markup on me. And so long as everything is of a good quality and everything is delivered on time, the world keeps spinning. You know what I mean? Yeah, and something like that you can scale. But when you're talking about you actually individually, the person are delivering on all work that comes through, you're putting there's a capacity at the end of the day. Really, you have a limited capacity and a limited bandwidth, and as well, I mean, in a way, a limited motivation. Like you're saying, money is motivating to a point, but then when you're working 16 hours a day and 7 days a week, all of a sudden it's not necessarily about the money, because your head is fried, and you're sick and you're sore, and all of a sudden this dream life you created is driving you around the bend. So I think that's a big differentiator here, maybe between somebody who's listening, who maybe, I mean, look, we get a lot of freelancers, but also agency owners. So I guess it kind of depends which side of the fence you fall on, really.
Yeah.
Look, Daniel, it's been a great episode. I've enjoyed it, especially all the stories you have about clients. It sounds like you went through quite a unique storm last year in terms of people leaving. But look, you know what, it's inspiring, and it's good for people to hear that this is the reality of it. I've been through similar situations myself, clients not paying you, working with agencies, Google update happens, all of a sudden they don't need content anymore because they were black hat SEO and certain things. And anyway, look, I have a whole other situation on that with regard to guest posting, but like I completely get where you're coming from, where overnight you can have a number of different clients sending you work, and then it just dries up because something happens, and it's not a situation any freelancer likes to be in. And when you're in there, I guess the best thing to do is just try your best not to go into desperation mode, and just lower your rates exponentially and take anything you can get, but try and maintain your rates, and but be consistent, and just go back into sales mode. You know what I mean? Like pitch, prospect.
Yeah, exactly. So
get those new clients on board, and then you'll start to build momentum again. Because when agencies are sending you work, you get a bit complacent. In terms of you're not pitching, you're not prospecting, you're not in sales mode. You're kind of in delivery mode. So
Yeah, exactly. So what I found at the end of last year, sort of, I've built my business back up to probably 90% of what it was sort of at the start of last year. So I'm back where I need to be. But what I'd found is I was out of the sort of pitching game for so long that I was sort of scared. I know it sounds stupid, but I had this 100% feedback on Upwork that I'd sort of used as a sort of bit of a shield, that if anyone criticised me, look, I've got 100% feedback, don't criticise me. And I didn't want to go back on there because I was like, oh, what if I go on there and I get a bad feedback? Suddenly I can't use that shield anymore. But luckily I've been able to go back on there, and this year every single one's been sort of 100% and I haven't had problems. But I sort of should have gone on there like sort of August time last year, May time, when all that stuff was happening. But I sort of only waited until December just because I was worried about going back on there. And so when I first started back on there, I know obviously I hadn't pitched for years and stuff, but I was sort of editing my sort of proposals every single day because I was testing, this isn't working and this isn't working and this isn't working. And I kept testing until I found something that worked. And I sort of kept that proposal now that I know it works. But what I've always done in the past as well is if something stops working, sort of then test stuff again and try and change stuff and whatever. So yeah, it was sort of a whole new sort of learning experience again last year, because I didn't have the sort of pitches that I put together on Elance years ago. I had to sort of start from scratch and write up why someone would want to work with me and stuff. And it sort of goes into a different conversation here where people say you shouldn't have sort of blanket proposals, which I sort of have proposals that are sort of 80% built. So it'll say, this is my experience that I've pre-written, this is my, I don't know, what I'm going to help you with. And then I'll sort of do the rest of the proposal, sort of, I'll hire whatever your name is, and then I'll sort of cater it towards their job. So say their job is, I don't know, an e-commerce company. As I say, I don't really take on e-commerce, but if it was an e-commerce company, I said, okay, well, I see you sell shoes. I can see that your average price is £15. Okay, if we target the low-end customers here, we sort of have lower bids, blah, blah, blah. So I'll sort of have most of my proposals pre-written, but then I'll sort of every single proposal will be unique to that potential client. So yeah, basically just writing up the sort of core proposals was quite hard and getting that to work again. And as I say, yeah, it was quite a scary process because it's like you're starting again. And yeah, it did take a few months. So.
Yeah, and look, having those core proposals, this is something that you do before you're getting clients. This is almost like your homework, like you're saying, why would I work with you? Okay, so you do your core proposals, a couple of templates. I use Text Expander. I absolutely love it. It's a free web application for anybody who's listening, who maybe you could save these in there, and you just hit like a short code like exclamation, and boom, it pre-fills all the text onto the page for you. So I mean, and then just looking for, a lot of people will have something like a keyword in the job description, like mention soup, to know that I actually read my, and you'd be amazed, like any website that's like giving tips about outsourcing will always say include a keyword, and if they don't include the keyword in the reply, just ignore them. So you could have a brilliant profile, have a brilliant proposal, you could be really good at what you do, but you didn't pay attention to detail, and therefore the person won't even take you on to the interview stage. I know this both from being a freelancer and hiring, because it's something, once again, I would use when posting jobs on Upwork, that, just little things like that, because it shows that you've paid attention to detail, and then you can go into, like you're saying, using a snippet or Text Expander or copy and paste for a core proposal, and then just refining it to the job post. Oh, I see you sell shoes. I see you sell sneakers. I see you sell dresses. I can help with this, blah, blah, blah. And you're just, all you're trying to do at that point is engage them in the conversation. You know what I mean? That's what you're trying to do. Get them to read it and go, yes, this person looks like they might be the right person for the job. So.
Well, something I've found that works really well is a lot of the time I don't even use a proposal. I'll sort of ask a question. I'll just say, oh, I've noticed on your website you're saying X, Y, and Z. Why are you saying this? And it gets them, oh, okay, well, everyone else is giving me a proposal. This guy's asking me a question. They sort of reply to the question, and then you get into a conversation, and then through that conversation you end up winning the work. And I say just because you're different and you've actually asked a question and you've actually shown that you have taken sort of a bit of time to actually look at what they're doing and stuff. And yeah, I've won a lot of work just by asking questions, to be honest. So.
Oh, look, there you go. Solid tip. Ask a question. Don't just use blanket proposals.
Yeah.
Daniel, look, thank you very much for coming on. So where can people find you on the internet if somebody wanted to get in touch or maybe hire you to talk about it?
Well, just look at LinkedIn for Daniel Hall. I run Veni Vidi Vici. Obviously, you'll find me on Upwork. And my new book is The $1 Million Freelancer, which you can buy from October the 2nd on Amazon. So go out there and buy it, everyone, please. And yeah, that's how you get in contact with me.
Absolutely. Look, Daniel, thank you. I'll make sure to link everything up in the show notes. And when the book is released, I'll share it out across social media and, on the website and everything as well. So thank you. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, have a good weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. Head over to the website to access the resources and links mentioned in today's episode at digitalnomadcafe.com.